Boulder is a buzzin' in the transfer portal. Kevin Borba of Locked On Buffs is here to discuss just that because Hykeem Williams, a former 5-star recruit, is headed to Colorado. And I have to say, Kevin, the hilarity of this particular move is not lost on me. I don't know if you saw the post that Hykeem Williams made back when he committed to Florida State out of high school, that he wasn't going to be a Travis Hunter type, a recruit from the state of Florida that winds up at Colorado. And here we are, because nothing means anything. Words are just words. No one means anything they say, apparently. I thought that was funny. But I think this is a pretty high upside pickup for the Buffs, who have now added a couple of receivers in this spring transfer portal window. What do you make of the Hykeem Williams addition?
First of all, he was young then. He didn't know anything.
he was basically a kid 2 years ago. Now he's
grown. He learned from his mistakes. No, I think it's a great flyer, right? He didn't quite live up to his 5-star rating in Florida State due to injuries and other reasons, but at the same time, anytime you could get a former 5-star, there's that potential there. So if Colorado can unlock him, he's going to pair nice with Joseph Williams and then Sincere Brown, who's 6'5". So they've got a nice new receiver core to replace Spencer, the most wide receivers drafted in the NFL draft this past weekend, Colorado. So they have to replace.
Really?
Yeah. They have
Travis Hunter, Jimmy Horn,
and LeJonte Wester.
And no one else had 3 receivers drafted.
Guess not.
Hey, that's a non-zero stat. I actually didn't know that. That's pretty good.
Yeah. So, I mean, Colorado has to replace all that talent, and I think they have a couple young guys like Draylon Miller or Marion Miller, the Miller brothers, who aren't actually brothers. They remind me of like the Aldon Smith and Justin Smith, where they're like the Smith brothers, but they're clearly not brothers.
Did you know that Bo Nix and Tez Johnson are brothers?
I did not. I'm familiar with the story, but I love the constant storylines in college football. Ryan Williams is only 17.
He's going to be 17 for the rest of his life.
He has to be, honestly.
Has to be.
But I think if Colorado has an offense like they did last year, or they hope to have an offense like they did last year, they need a lot of receiver talent. And they've added a lot of offensive linemen. They've added some talented quarterbacks to replace Deion Sanders, and they just need some ingredients around them, some guys around them. And I think Hykeem Williams, the potential's there, right? He has to stay healthy. He has to fit in and maybe apologize for the Travis Hunter post. Would you apologize? Would you?
I don't know. I mean, I'd be curious if a reporter actually asks him about it at any point in time, or if anybody asks him about it, like, hey, do you remember when you made that? What changed? And what answer he would give. I wonder if he even remembers making that post, honestly.
It felt like one of those things where when you commit, you're just so hyped to be a part of your program. But nowadays, it's like everything's very temporary. Like these guys commit to a program, and then 5 minutes later, they're like, hey, by the way, I'm out. And it's like, what happened to I'm bleeding whatever color?
Yeah. Yeah, it is a strange phenomenon, especially with the guys who commit in like the December signing period and then are in the portal by April, or sooner. It's like, what happened to I'm all the way committed, 100%, all glory to God. Like, whoa, we backtracked. We walked that one back a little bit.
God said, never mind.
I guess. I don't know how that thinking all goes down, but I do think that for Williams, it gives Colorado a different look with their receiving core, because he's well over 6 feet tall. Sincere Brown is 6'5". That's not what the receiving core was based on last year. Marion Miller is what, 6'1", 6'2"?
Both the Millers are like 6'1", 6'2". So
yeah, and he was kind of the biggest, or at least the tallest receiver that Colorado had last year. So how does that change their passing game, going to these guys that are, certainly capable after the catch? It's not like they can't run with the football, but none of these guys are Jimmy Horn or Travis Hunter types out there.
Yeah, I think it gives the quarterbacks a little more room for error, honestly, right? You just look at what a big receiver brings you. It's like sometimes you don't want this to always be the go-to, but it's like, hey, Hykeem might be down there somewhere kind of mentality where it's like you could take more risk, right? You have Caden Salter, who, although he's one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the country, he took a step back last year. And I think he could return to that 2023 form, but I think you have to give him some confidence and build up his confidence. And having some guys with some long wingspans, some high verticals who are tall already. I think that helps. And I think also, not that this really matters, but people have always said Colorado's a small team. Their transfer class this year specifically has been aggressively large. Like whether it's the offensive lineman, there's a lot of 6'5", 350 guys. Sincere Brown at wide receiver, 6'5". You just highlighted all the receivers getting a lot bigger. So I think Colorado is sort of gearing up towards what we see are the successful teams in college football, right? Because for the most part, not that you have to be the biggest team to win, but Ohio State wasn't small, right? Notre Dame had some big offensive linemen. All the SEC schools are known for being big and fast. And so I think Colorado is sort of shifting into that like gear of being built that way.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it. It's just going to be so different. Many. You're not going to have Shedeur Sanders back there. We're not going to have that conversation. We could, but we're not going to. That's not what this segment is about. And your receivers are going to look different, but there is some continuity on this coaching staff, right? So offensively, kind of seems like the game plan is probably going to be pretty similar, where it's still going to be an air-focused attack. Like, it's not a coincidence that Colorado's bringing in these receivers, right? I mean, when Sincere Brown entered, he was one of the most highly coveted transfer targets at his position. He goes to Colorado. Why? Because even though Amarion Miller's already there, or the quote-unquote Miller brothers, you still know Colorado's going to throw the ball around the yard a lot.
Yeah, and I think there's something that needs to be said about Colorado's ability to go out and get a guy like Sincere Brown, right? I think, like you said, Texas A&M, I mean, you didn't say this, but a lot of people wanted him. Texas A&M, a lot of major programs were after him. So Colorado has really been able to stand out in the portal. And I don't really know if it's NIL related, because obviously Shedeur and Travis were funding a lot of their NIL stuff last year. But I think if you just look at the continuity, the confidence that the staff has in, I guess, their quarterbacks, right? I don't think you bring in all these receivers if you don't think you're going to sling the ball around. And just the confidence that you could build off of last year, I feel like this Colorado offense is sort of finding an identity early, right? And I think that's something that they haven't had in years past, where it's like it's week 3 and we're like, okay, what is this Colorado team going to do? Like, we still don't understand it. And I think they're trying to get that out of the way now.
By the way, when you said earlier, he might lack a little confidence, I wondered if you were Ron Washington talking about Scott Hatterberg. The nice way to say it is he lacks confidence. So give him some.
He gets on base.
He gets on base. And of course, the F it Justin Jefferson is down there somewhere is a forever football meme. But these are not the only moves that Colorado's made in the portal. They were poking around Harrison Taggart, the linebacker transfer from BYU, but they've added an offensive lineman and a safety from Tennessee. Kevin, are these starters in your view, or are these just kind of nice depth pieces?
I think the offensive lineman has a chance to be a starter. I think safety, possibly. They already brought in a safety from Auburn, so they're going to have quite a interesting safety battle, if you will. But their offensive line, let me run you through their offensive linemen, just because they've made some splashes that I don't think are getting enough attention. Larry Johnson, big dude, right? I don't feel like a lot of people are familiar with the fella, but he's played in, I think it was 22 games at Tennessee, and he comes in, and I'm sorry, I'm trying to pull this up as we speak.
We can tell.
Filibuster for me.
We can tell. Colorado's offensive line has been the worst in all of Power 4.
The app that Elon built just crashed, so I had a nice tweet written up, and the app that Elon built crashed. So I apologize for that. You never know what he's 6'7", 350, right? And I think counting him,
that's a lot of man.
That's a lot of man. Xavier Hill was another guy they brought in.
Great addition.
Right. They just keep bringing in offensive linemen, and I think that Spencer, and you just kind of filibustered for me as I was panicking for 10 seconds there.
You're welcome.
They've had a bad offensive line, right? It's no secret. So what do? They go out and add Larry Johnson, 6'7", 350, Xavier Hill, 6'4", 318, Mana Tamini, 6'4", 345, Zylan Chrysler, 6'6", 335, Zarian McGill, 6'2", 308. Like, they're just Aki Oji, 6'4", 315. Like, they are adding guys with experience, with size, and physicality. And I also think they're trying to find the perfect formula, which they have not been able to do for the past 2 years. And so if they have 10 guys that they could figure it out, like some sort of combination, I think that's probably the smartest move, because if you're going to try to build an offensive line every single year in the portal, you have to have options.
Yeah. And I do wonder if that's a good long-term strategy, or if at some point they need to just invest in high school recruiting more and, not find just one Jordan Seaton, but go find 2 or 3 per cycle and develop guys over the course of the year. That's where I think the best offensive lines in college football have typically come from. I don't think that's a coincidence.
Right.
I do like the moves they've made, and Seaton is back, right?
Yep.
So you got a former 5-star who's going into his second year. And Xavier Hill, Brian Smith of the Portal podcast said that he was one of his favorite offensive linemen that moved the entire portal offseason, regardless of the spring or winter window. Like, I like those pickups. I think it can be better. Is it going to be a strength, though? I don't know. Probably neat. Like, Salter can, of course, move. Juju Lewis can move a little bit, whoever's going to be back there. But, at some point, I just wonder if Deion's going to realize, maybe we need to go to the high school ranks and, build guys and let them grow together over the course of 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, and I think I said this last year all the time. If they could just be average, who knows what the ceiling
just
of
average.
It's average, please. Like, you ranked 133rd in sacks allowed. Maybe rank 60th, right? Maybe rank 60th or
75th would be a massive upgrade.
Right. And so I totally agree with you, right? I don't think there's unless this works out. I think that's the only problem, or not really a problem, because if it works out, it's great. But if it does work out, he's going to be like, well, here we go. Round 3. Let's do it again. Round 4. And so I think it really needs to fail for him to change that strategy. But I think there's a trend around college football, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Locked on College Football. Coaches value guys who are older. Like, that is just what's in, guys who are older and who have played at other programs. And so
when you have access to the portal, there are definitely some young guys who 5 to 10 years ago would be playing for teams and are not, because of a handful of transfers that were available to come in and plug a need.
Yeah, and it almost seems like nowadays, where if you don't start within your freshman or sophomore year, like, you're cooked as a recruit. Like, that's just pure transfer material. And so I think Deion Sanders is going to keep doing the transfer thing until it blows up even more. I personally would want to do what you said, build some continuity, because imagine if they brought in Jordan Seaton and a left guard who is in his class that started right away. That side of the line's locked up for the next 2 or 3 years, whereas now it's like, okay, we have Jordan Seaton next year, and then Xavier Hill's going to leave, right? Zarian McGill is probably going to graduate or whatever, and this guy's going to graduate, and it's like, okay, we have one returning lineman again.
Yeah,
and
you're going to be starting over.
That's not a fun situation to be in. I just don't think that's a realistic strategy, but I digress. We'll see if it works out this year.
On the flip side of the coin, though, Colorado got better in Deion's first year from the year prior, and they got better in his second year from his first year. So say whatever you like, and we can have our questions. I think these are fair questions to ask. The end result is, are you winning football games? Yeah. Just won 9 games, and people looked at it and went, was that all that you did? Like, that's a pretty big deal for Colorado to be 9 wins.
You know your program is like really in the right direction. People are like, oh, really, 9 wins?